Hey everyone, and welcome to my new mini-series on getting into PvP. I'm starting off this being basically a complete noob who's barely partook in PvP content over the last few years, and the goal is to become a competent arena player over the course of these videos. Why am I doing this? Well, first, PvP gameplay really does force you to understand the game mechanics more than I think a lot of sort of heroic and underrating ends up doing, because you deal with more unpredictability, more mind games with other players, and you're directly dealing with the toolkit of other players, be it countering your opponent's plays or synergizing with your allies. So I think it's good for my own development as a player, and I also find myself with less and less free time, and because of that, PvP makes more and more sense. I can have thoroughly intense gameplay, but in a more pick up and play manner. I suspect that a lot of people who really haven't done much PvP content but have a limited schedule could actually find something like this to be of great value if they could just get into it in the first place. And then finally, as a YouTuber, I owe it to myself and to you to be as experienced in the game as I actually can be. PvP has been mostly untouched by me, which has meant that I can't really bring much insight into PvP related discussions. Mythic raiding doesn't really fit my schedule at the minute, but I have had lots of raiding experience over the past years anyway, so PvP really is my blind spot. I mean, pet battles are as well, but I think we can leave them for now. So let's start off at the beginning with a fresh rogue. I've decided to go with Outlaw for now. Why? Well, it's got a large toolkit, lots of interrupts, stuns, generally a lot of room to play well. Roll the Bones does get a bit of a laugh from some, but I do understand why, but I actually enjoy that level of unpredictability, especially when you're combining their artifact weapon trait with some of the Roll the Bones buffs. I think that can get really insane and quite fun indeed. Once I hit level 110, I basically dropped 50k on a set of crafted gear, which got me up to item level 808. This immediately caused the world quests to be giving me gear from about 810 to 830, which really did allow for fast gearing. I also had AK knowledge 20 due to my main, so getting caught up with artifact power wasn't really much bother at all. It really is amazing how much easier this stuff is after the changes of patch 7.1.5. Okay, with the character ready, I needed to get my actual PvP setup kind of worked out. Speaking generally, the unpredictable nature of PvP means you need a faster reaction time, and you also often use more abilities than you would more often in PvE. This is just due to the nature of PvP, but also there are some extra abilities in your honor talents. Therefore, keybinding needed to be looked at. I started off by using my basic PvE setup, where Q, E, and S are unbound, and then A and D are bound to strafe. This immediately freed up 3 very easy to press keys, and that's actually 6 if we include a shift modifier. Looking around the WASD cluster, I have 11 keybinds. There's Q and Shift Q, E and Shift E, there's W, which isn't really ideal, S and Shift S, R and Shift R, and then finally F and Shift F. You can use more keys around there, but as you can see, there really are a lot of options that are, I think, faster than pressing the regular number keys. Now, as per my PvE setup, I chose to bind my rotational abilities to my keys. I use a Corsair Scimitar mouse, so its keypad was just used for my regular abilities. Currently, the mouse keypad is just set to number keys, but if I wanted to, I could set that to the numpad. This would allow me to bind things to my regular number keys on the keyboard, and then have more binds on the mouse's keypad. I might do that in the future, but right now I don't particularly have the need. So then things like Cloak of Shadows, Sprint, Grappling Hook, Vanish, etc., they're all bound to the keys near the WASD cluster, and then the likes of Saber Strike, Roll the Bones, and Pistol Shot are bound to the number keys via my mouse. So with the key binding setup done, it was time to get add-ons. There were quite a few different options, but I decided to only start off with a few. I will mention everything that I came across though. The first one is Battleground Targets. This is a fantastic add-on from what I can tell, but it continually gave me errors, which meant I really just couldn't use it. It seems to be specific to me though. Basically what it does is it gives you frames for all of your opponents in the battleground. It's really awesome and it will probably work for you. I'm not really sure why I had issues. There's then Gladius. This is a must for Arena. It shows you lots of important information, including DRs. I couldn't imagine doing arenas or skirmishes without this. And then Nameplate cooldowns is quite self-explanatory. It provides great information, and it works with Tidy Plates, which is my favorite nameplate add-on so far. The only hurdle is developing the necessary memory and game sense to actually use the information that this add-on displays well. There's also Toofy CD. This seems particularly great for casters. I've seen loads of PvP players use it, but right now I feel like I'm kind of okay to leave it. Omnibar is another great add-on for tracking cooldowns on abilities. It's mostly used for tracking the interrupts of your enemies, so if a player does an interrupt, it will appear on the Omnibar and, along with its cooldown. This means you know when your opponents have used their all of their CCs or interrupts, and you basically know when you are free to blow your cooldown safely. Then Gladiator LOSSA2 has been recommended to me quite a lot. It's a PvP announcer that will audibly call out the usage of crucial abilities cast by your opponents. Often you miss out on spell effects, the sound effects, so this tool could be quite useful. I'll probably activate it initially when I move into arenas, and perhaps see if that helps my game sense. Healers Have to Die is another great one. It puts massive icons over the nameplates of healers. This will help you protect the healers on your team, and then target the healers in your enemy team, so you can kill them. It's fantastic for battlegrounds, and that's really all that I kind of know of or really investigated so far. I'm sure that I'll learn more and have a more proper setup when I'm experienced with PvP. The UI in this video was thrown together kind of quickly so I can just get into the fight, but a later episode of this series will probably feature a proper WeakAura's UI that is a lot more clean and hopefully more informative as well, based on the experience that I gain actually doing PvP content. Next, it's worth giving you a quick update on PvP in Legion, as a lot of things have actually changed since Warlords of Draenor. First, stats basically don't matter anymore. You get a custom stat profile set to you when you actually enter PvP content, therefore you don't need to min-max your gear. That stat profile is then scaled up by 0.1% for each average item level over 800 that you are, so a player who is item level 810 will be scaled up by 1%, an opponent that's say 870 scaled up by 7%. It's not much of a difference, certainly a lot less than in Warlords. You also no longer earn Conquest and Honor, instead you get loot boxes at the end of PvP content that can contain gear and some other rewards. PvP gear doesn't really exist in the sense that it used to. All gear is equally good at PvP, just some gear happens to be dropped by PvP content. They've also added the Honor talent system. Think of Honor as experience. You level up through the Honor tree as you do in the same way that you level up through your normal talent tree on a regular character as you're leveling. Going through that honor tree unlocks more options. Now thankfully you can get most of what you need quite early on, and then once you hit rank 50 you can prestige, which will reset your honor rank to 1. Now that doesn't reset your talents as of patch 7.1, but it means you can level up again and earn all of that gold and artifact power once more. You can also get some really cool mounts. Overall, the first thing that those of us who are new to PvP in Legion will realize is how much nicer it is for a new player than Warlords of Draenor. If you hopped into a WoD battleground in, say, patch 6.2 and you didn't have PvP gear, you would be absolutely destroyed because of the power disparity. That pretty much is no longer the case with Legion. So let's just talk about, getting into the fight and getting into content. The first thing that you need to do is get used to using your entire toolkit. Experienced PvP players might be laughing here, but it is true that often in PvE, many abilities just kind of go unused. So, it'll take a little bit of work to get used to using all of those things again. The most important thing really to work on, I think, is developing your knowledge of other classes, increasing your reaction times, and then just sort of developing that general PvP game sense. And I don't think there's an easy way to do that. You just need to play more PvP content. That said, I think the best method is doing skirmishes, or focusing on doing the smaller, more objective-focused battlegrounds like Warsong, AB, and Twin Peaks. The larger ones like AV and Isle of Conquest, while your faction might win them often, they're a bit of a spectacle, but they don't really, I think, increase your PvP skill that much because you don't have really any one-on-one or 2v2 combat going on. It's just big zergs. Hopping onto YouTube and looking up PvP class guides for your class might be a good idea. I'd especially suggest finding out what classes you normally do well against and then what classes your spec struggles against, and then ideally grab a friend and start dueling, or just head into skirmishes. Of course, skirmishes are a great learning tool because they are a smaller size and therefore there's a larger focus on the mind games between you and your opponent. That should just help you learn how to play against another human, but also learn the toolkit of the classes you're playing against. Now, the last video in this series will likely be a combination of all of the tips, tricks, and advice that I've learned. For now, though, what I try to focus on as a rogue is simple enough. It's dealing with enemy healers. It's very important to keep them stunned and to kick their spell casts. Healers are super powerful in PvP, so I normally just try to keep them locked down so that the rest of my team in a BG can manage to kill their other players. Now, when doing this, you need to be aware of DRs, diminishing returns. Basically, the duration of successive crowd control abilities within the same category is reduced. You also need to be aware of how to effectively interrupt. Often enemies will bait your interrupt with a minor cast so that they can then use their big heals for, free from your influence. As a rogue, I've got many abilities that can interrupt casts, including all of my stuns and my normal interrupts, so that can be corrected for, but if your spec doesn't have many interrupts, then you really need to focus on that. Another thing I try to focus on is using my stuns well. At the start, I would just chain them all up as much as I could. That was fine, but then more skilled players would just ride out the stuns, survive through, blow their cooldowns, and destroy me. So hold back in your CC abilities until you really see your enemy use a major cooldown, then you shut that down well, their good stuff's on cooldown, and you have the upper hand for the rest of the fight. And that's really where I'm going to leave it for this video. The next one will be after I've done a lot more PvP content. This might be a 2 or 3-part series depending on how things go. The ideal goal is to get into rated PvP and do kind of decently, but we'll really just have to see how things go. Anyway, that's basically it for the video, so thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.